I'm Bruce the Blog, and this is Frank J. Rich, and you're watching Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo presents Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog. Hello, I'm Bruce Apar, and this is Frank J. Rich, and we're here with our new series from Chase Media Group and Penny Saver Community TV, in which Frank and I will be speaking with community leaders and of all sorts, business people, elected officials, people in the community who maybe are head of volunteer organizations and not-for-profits, but anybody that we feel you would want to hear from, and maybe you yourself know somebody that we should consider having on the show. And if you do, please don't hesitate to contact us. You can email bapar@chasemediagroup.com. And of course, we are brought to you by the Penny Saver and by Chase Media Group. And as always, we thank CEO Carla Chase and Frank J. Rich. And we also want to mention that if you have anybody in your family or know anybody who is a local youth athlete, we've been producing this new monthly sports section courtesy of Entergy. And if you have photos or some news you want to report about local youth sports, please email editor@pennysavercommunity.com. And we want to welcome our guest, Assemblyman Steve Katz. Steve, welcome as always.
Good to see you.
And again, we've been talking as we have elected officials on the transition in districts, right? Your district is 94, it was 99.
That's right.
And you've always stepped up. I mean, ever since you ran for election as a quote-unquote outsider, right, as a Tea Party candidate.
That's right.
And you sort of bucked the establishment and of course won. You've always stepped up and just spoke your mind about things, and you've certainly been doing that currently with your deep, profound concern about what's happening in Albany with some of the recent scandals that have been reported. And you're really out in front, I know, in calling for basically the resignation of Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver, correct?
Yes.
And,
yes.
And I mean, did you notice, this kind of, as you put it, unethical activity when you first got there, or is it something that, as you've been there, it becomes more apparent?
What was apparent from the beginning was that Sheldon Silver has more power than anybody in the state should ever be allowed to accrue. 18 years in that same Speaker of the Assembly has given him unrivaled power.
And he is elected by the Assembly members. Is that how it works, sir?
Correct. He is elected Speaker by the members of the Assembly in the beginning of each term.
Which is a Democratic Assembly.
Which
right?
is heavily Democratic.
Right.
Heavily Democratic to the tune of, out of 150 Assembly people, there are now 102 Democrats and 48 Republicans.
Right. Right.
Of which I am one of the 48.
Right. And so, what in your view, and I know you have been articulating this, are his transgressions that you feel, need to be called to account and that he needs to step down?
What needs to be called into account is the same exact reasons that Joe Paterno at Penn State was called to account. The differences between Joe Paterno and Sheldon Silver are that, number one, Joe Paterno was hiding a sex offender, one sex offender, for 20 years. Sheldon Silver has been protecting and sheltering numerous sex offenders over that same amount of time.
Are they convicted sex offenders or alleged? Or
these are alleged because Sheldon Silver was able to effect out-of-court settlements by using a discretionary fund, also known as a slush fund, that is taxpayer funded under the guise of miscellaneous contractual arrangements, $12 million in that account that Sheldon Silver has the power and discretion to use any way he wants. He did it with Michael Boxley, who was his own employee, who in 2001 was going to be charged with drugging and raping a woman. He effected an out-of-court settlement using taxpayer dollars through this slush fund.
Well, what was Michael Boxley's exact position on his staff?
I believe he was in counsel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he
All
was counsel for
Right.
the Assemblyman. The same thing happened again with Michael Boxley 2 years later in 2003, except this time he was taken out of the Capitol in handcuffs. Finally, there was another out-of-court settlement of slightly over $500,000, $750,000 of which came out of taxpayer dollars, thanks to Sheldon Silver. So he not only, after the first charge of attempted rape, did he keep this man in his employ, but it actually happened a second time 2 years later. That's the first one. Andrea Pizer wrote yesterday about Adam Clayton Powell IV and the same sort of problem. You now have, which occurred a few years ago, I believe, you now have the case of Vito Lopez, who was being charged with sexual harassment by two of his women employees, which Sheldon Silver worked out a $135,000 settlement, $103,800 of that coming out of the miscellaneous contractual arrangements fund, your taxpayer dollars at work.
And he's Mr. Lopez is a Bronx, I believe,
Is
Assemblyman?
Brooklyn.
Oh, Brooklyn Assemblyman.
He's
Okay.
one of the
All right.
most powerful Democrats. He is the chairman, he was the chairman of the Housing Committee, and he had a not-for-profit that was as well being looked at because his girlfriend and his mother or another relationship was getting approximately $1 million a year salary from the not-for-profit that is partially funded by New York State.
Wow.
Your taxpayer dollars at work. So he's already under investigation for that. But now that you have there's four women it turned out to be, that's how we found out, that Sheldon Silver effected a mechanism that we got to watch whereby Attorney General Schneiderman was involved in the agreement of this, and Thomas DiNapoli, the comptroller, so the Attorney General was involved in this, and the comptroller was involved in cutting the check. At this point, to have watched this, it makes me want to take a shower to even talk about it. This goes beyond. This makes Sheldon Silver the poster child for why we can never, ever again have one man gain this level of power.
And speaking of that, by the way, Assemblyman Katz, you've made, ever since you were elected, and as I said, even campaigning for election, you've made quote-unquote corruption in Albany your cause célèbre, right? I mean,
That's right.
Now, what about your assembly members? I mean, this is not new. In fact, the former Senate Majority Leader, Joseph Bruno, was convicted and incarcerated.
That's right.
So this is not something that just came to light
That's
when
right.
you got to Albany. Where do your colleagues in the Assembly stand on all this?
I'm waiting to hear from the rest of my colleagues.
I mean, there's
in the
not a
Assembly.
one that
Claudia
has...
Tenney stood with me. Assemblyman Claudia Tenney stood with me and called for his resignation.
So that's what, 2 out of 150.
You haven't heard one word from either the minority leadership or any Democrat in the Assembly right now.
And why is that in your view?
Because the Democrats are afraid of him, terrified
Sheldon
of him.
Silver, you're saying.
Of Sheldon Silver. Why my leadership hasn't spoken up, I cannot answer for that.
And what do you think the governor's position is in all of this?
I am hoping that the governor right now is going to show the state and the nation true leadership right now, and show us that this is a leader who is willing to take down whoever needs to be taken down for the sake of honest government in the state of New York. Clean, honest government, which we sure don't have now. You've seen it in the last week. You've seen it with Shirley Huntley. You've seen it with Naomi Rivera. You've seen it with Vito Lopez. You've seen it with Sheldon Silver and Attorney General Schneiderman and DiNapoli. My Lord, how much more do we have to take here, we the people of the state of New York? This is absolutely above and beyond the pale. We deserve a whole lot better than this. We are being put upon by taxes, by an unfriendly business environment, and now by utter corruption up in Albany. The fact that you can get away and have a mechanism like Sheldon Silver does to have a slush fund at his discretion, taxpayer funded, to do these sorts of heinous activities, hiding sex criminals and offenses. How dare you do that? You are no longer a leader. You are no longer a leader, Sheldon Silver, with absolutely no moral or ethical bottom. You are nothing more than an accomplice right now. And the decent thing for you to do, to show the state that you have a modicum of decency left in yourself, is to resign.
So you're saying resign as Speaker? I mean,
resign entirely.
Oh, really?
Get out.
Even from his elected?
I think he should he should resign from his
as
elected.
an Assemblyman.
You bet.
Right.
He has done disgrace to his state, to his district, and we have other examples of people who've done far less and who have resigned, been forced to resign. I will refer you to Anthony Weiner, who did nothing more than expose himself. Bad judgment, but he didn't have a slush fund. He wasn't corrupting the government like we see here in New York.
Oh, there was recently Montserrat, right?
Montserrat,
Yeah, right.
Pedro Espada.
Right.
Let's go back. You got Robert Packwood. Okay, you have Foley. Okay, all these people, they did the right thing whether it was under duress or not. Yeah. We're asking Sheldon Silver to do no less.
That brings to a point. Does the governor have a choice in this matter?
Yes.
So
Yes.
because if he had no choice, that might be remedy. But if he has a choice and makes a poor one, then he is vulnerable in your view.
Absolutely. This is a man who has presidential aspirations. He makes no bones about that.
Right.
And I respect that. It's time for you to actually show some real leadership. I've seen a whole lot of smoke and mirrors, with all due respect. This is the time to do something concrete that we in the state can all understand and respect and get behind. There is not one person who, at this point, who doesn't understand what Joe Paterno did and why he was fired immediately. What we don't understand is Sheldon Silver doing the same thing with more people, creating a hostile environment for women. That's how it turns out, it seems now.
Yeah.
And he is not going to be forced to resign, at very least.
Now we have, watching this show, whether it's on cable or on YouTube, and we have an audience. I mean, what is the political expediency on the part of the governor in terms of, realistically, he's sitting there saying, okay, with his advisors, his inner circle, saying, okay, so we got this guy Katz and Tenney, nobody else is complaining, so there's no compelling reason for me. But my question is, what can anybody out there, the public, do to get behind this, what you're saying, and to let their voice be heard, and to say it's not just two assembly persons right now who want him to resign, but the electorate is going to weigh in on this.
Well, what we're going to get started at this point, Bruce, is a petition that's going to be going around the state. I have an open letter that's going to be going to the governor. We've had Ed Cox call for Sheldon Silver's resignation. And you're going to start hearing that drumbeat get louder. He's the chairman of the Republican State Party.
Yeah, right.
But you are going to hear that drumbeat get louder and louder right now, unless you're watching a fascinating chess match right now. Sheldon Silver doing everything possible to deflect any blame, anything negative on him, deflecting it to Vito Lopez and telling the other people involved, Schneiderman, DiNapoli, and whoever else is in there that if I go down, you're all going down. And so what we need to do as a citizenry of the state of New York is let the government know that this cannot go on, that we, both Republicans and Democrats, are outraged at the hubris, at the utter lack of ethics and integrity that we have, and morality that we have just seen in the top leadership of the Assembly, meaning Sheldon Silver. This is all about Sheldon Silver. It's Vito Lopez is the small potato in this.
And and as of, this taping, which we can tell people it's September 7th, Vito Lopez has not indicated any willingness to step down.
Correct.
Right.
He's been stripped of his chairmanship of the Democratic Party in Brooklyn. He has been stripped of his chairmanship of the Housing Committee, but he insists that he's going to run.
Right. And you've been invoking Assemblyman Katz, State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and State Controller Tom DiNapoli, both Democrats, right? I mean, what are you saying that because they're looking the other way? That
No, I'm saying that Eric Schneiderman and Sheldon Silver has the communications to show that Eric Schneiderman was involved in the negotiations. And signed off on the agreement.
Right. And what about the controller, Tom DiNapoli?
Tom DiNapoli is saying that, well, since this came out of the slush fund the discretionary fund that we always approve anything he puts in for, this was just another case of that.
And now Senate Majority Leader Dean Scalos, a Republican, because the Senate has a Republican majority. Where does he stand in all this? What?
I don't hear anything from him. Okay, we have yet to hear a word.
But you're saying was he privy to the negotiations, or you don't know?
That's all for an independent investigator to find out for us. That's
Right.
exactly why we want to know, has this happened before? To who has this happened before? Where in the budget? How are you hiding this in the budget? And to be sure that this never happens again. If you have term limits, 2-year term limit for all leadership positions in the legislature, no slush funds, period, and just as importantly, no not-for-profit. No legislator may be involved whatsoever in a not-for-profit organization. The abuse that I've seen from that, from Vinnie Libel, now Naomi Rivera.
And what is her situation?
Naomi Rivera?
Yes.
Naomi Rivera
She's an assembly
is an
person?
assemblywoman.
Right.
She is from the Bronx. She is the daughter of Jose Rivera, who is a powerful Bronx Democratic assemblyman. She has a not-for-profit that she has been abusing, the same as Shirley Huntley, which is why she's in jail now. But what Naomi Rivera did was she had 2 boyfriends that she decided to put on her state payroll. The problem was those 2 guys already had full-time jobs. One of them is a gym teacher in the New York State school system, but he's also a full-time worker for Naomi Rivera. She's got to go too. And now the Democrats in the Bronx are circling the wagon around Naomi Rivera. How disgusting can you be?
And also, just going on to a different mission of yours, you might say, as regards your compatriots in the Assembly, they want to increase the annual salary that you would also benefit from to, I believe, $100,000 a year?
That's right.
From the current, what's the current?
$79,500. Now, here's what I've seen as a businessman. Number one, they bleed 66 days of legislative calendar over 6 months. 5 months out of the 6, we're there for 2 or 3 days a week, and during those 2 to 3 days, we do not spend more than an hour to an hour and a half actually working on legislation. Okay?
And what do you do?
We do busy work. We see lobbyists. We see interest groups. We write lots of bills
Photo
to make
ops.
us look
Don't forget
busy.
photo ops.
Okay? And as a businessman, I can tell you, without a doubt, we can get everything done we need to get done in 30 days if we actually were there for 30 days from Monday to Thursday, working from 10 to 4. Okay? You can see lobbyists down in your district. Why do we have to travel to Albany for the benefit of the lobbyists? Let them do a little traveling and come to us.
Yeah.
Okay? In doing so, we would cut from the 66 days to 30. I would cut our salaries. Here's what I feel. Number one, with term limits of 8-year maximum, just like the President of the United States, there'll be no pensions. So X out pensions for all legislators. Number two, X out the salary itself. They get a per diem for coming up those 30 days. That's all they need to do in reality. Yes, they have district, and so if you gave them a per diem of $1,000 a day, that's $30,000, which is a whole lot less than $79,500, plus your $165 a day for those 66 days, your per diem. And
So that's what? That's another
that would cut
$10,000 right
in,
there.
in having let us up there 5 months a year less, we would be saving our taxpayers over $100 million a year.
This is quite an indictment. Do you have any subscription around this idea, or are you a lone wolf in the promotion of it?
I'm the lone wolf.
You are.
And the reason I am a minority assemblyman, I understand that. The job that I have, my primary responsibility is to report to my district and my state what I have seen and to give remedies that I believe are timely and reasonable and to save the taxpayer money. We are the most heavily taxed state in the nation, and every little bit helps. One way is to have us up there a whole lot less time, because the waste that I've seen up there is absolutely beyond belief.
But what about the fact that, again, if you are, by your own admission, the lone wolf, being ostracized or frozen out by all the other people in the assembly, to the extent where you really can't get things done for your own constituents?
I can get things done on my constituents that are considered bipartisan by both sides. I have a bill that I'm going to be putting in this January with Sandy Galiff, which has a good chance of actually making it to the assembly floor and hopefully being enacted,
Right.
because we will have a Senate companion to this, and that is a truth in campaign finance bill, whereby on any candidate's website, on their home page, they will have a clearly defined direct link to the Board of Elections website showing who contributed to your campaign.
Oh, that would be very helpful.
So that is
yeah.
bipartisan.
Right.
That's going to be my first bill like that, and I'm very proud of it. So the one thing that's been interesting for me when you mention, working with the other side is, first of all, in the last 38 years that the Democrats have been in the majority, they have passed roughly 40,000 bills, okay? If you take away what's called home rule bills, which I think should be eliminated entirely as part of our cleaning up process,
Right.
take away those, which represent 1/3 of all the bills. So you've got 27,500 bills that made it onto the assembly floor to be voted on. And when a bill is voted on the assembly floor, it is passed, 102 to 48. The bill makes it to the assembly floor, it will be passed. All of our Republican bills die in the committee of 12 to 24 people. Okay? I call any bill that I put, the standing joke that I have is, what do you call a Republican bill that's gotten its the bill number before it goes to the committee to get put into the great beyond?
No bill at all.
We call it death row.
Death row.
Okay, so out of those 27,500 bills in the last 38 years, exactly 5 of them have been authored by a Republican and put onto the assembly floor and actually enacted into law.
Or instead
So-
of a bill of fare, it's a bill of unfair, maybe.
Exactly.
But we also want to drill down, to coin a phrase, a little bit into hydraulic fracturing, hydrofracking, fracking, because there too you're a little bit of a lone wolf in terms of in the Hudson Valley region. It seems that legislators who come out vocally in support of fracking are few and far between on both sides of the aisle. You know, it doesn't really even necessarily matter which political ideology.
Well, one of the reasons that we don't, I'm outspoken, but one of the reasons that they don't is there's going to be no fracking in our area.
Right.
Okay,
So then why is it such a lightning rod, a wedge issue even locally? And a lot of elected officials, you know, wave the flag, you know, I'm against fracking.
Well, because philosophically it really, it goes into where we want our state to be and to go. I have looked into fracking very, very deeply at this point, and I can tell you that, first of all, there are now organic biodegradable solvents to use instead of those toluene-based chemical slurries. So you've got a biodegradable organic solvent that does the same thing, and you've got a company that turns fracking water into potable, drinkable water again. So if you've eliminated those 2 elements of the case against fracking, I say, number 1, we are in desperate need of revenue in this state. Fracking is a means by which the state can have up to over $1 billion a year in new revenue. We're looking at 10,000 or more new jobs.
Yeah.
But again, you know, that being said, you know, all of the benefits that you just outlined, you obviously are also saying that you resolutely believe there is no environmental danger, there's no danger to the health of children, which has come up. In fact, very recently there was a vigil, which implies, the word itself implies something or somebody died, held in Mount Kisco against fracking, and you know, one of their planks, you might say, was that it's a danger to our children.
Well, I dare say that's the Democrats' position.
Right.
It's the Democrat and the ecology lobby's position. I don't think that anyone can take away my conservation bona fides.
Right.
Okay? And I say that it can be done ecologically responsibly. It can be done in a way that will not hurt the environment, and at the same, we can be the beacon on the hill.
Right.
Let's have biodegradable organic solvents we use. Let's make sure the water goes back to being potable. What's the problem? The drilling is going to be thousands of feet below the water table.
Exactly.
Right, yeah, right.
And so, no, I feel that this is one of our opportunities right now that should not, the greater good of all on this level, we want to be energy independent in the next 10 years.
Right.
This is a major piece of that for the good of our country.
Okay, and by the way, I just got the beacon from the control room that it's time to wrap everything up. So, Assemblyman, the Honorable Steve Katz, Dr.
Thank
Steve
you.
Katz.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
being with us
Great
as
to see
always.
you.
And thank you to Frank J. Rich, my co-host, and thank you for watching. And I always like to remind you, when Brewster Blog listens, people talk. Thank you.